What's the most normal episode of The Simpsons? Not the funniest, not the darkest, just the one that feels like it could actually happen in real life. And believe me, that's harder than it sounds. Springfield is a place where monorails get built overnight.
Hi, Homer! Oh, I hate that sound.
Where Homer goes to space, and where the laws of physics break at least twice before breakfast. Normal isn't exactly part of the show's DNA, but every once in a while, the writers tone down the chaos and give us something rare, an episode that feels painfully human. No aliens, no secret cults, no town-destroying accidents, just relatable family struggles, awkward social moments, or mistakes you could see happening in your own neighborhood. These are the stories where Springfield feels less like a cartoon and more like a mirror. So today, we're gonna dig through decades of episodes to uncover the 6 times The Simpsons got surprisingly normal. And trust me, the results might not be the ones you expect. If you want a Simpsons episode that feels like it could come straight out of real life, look no further than And Maggie Makes 3. It's not about aliens, celebrity cameos, or Springfield blowing itself up for the 50th time. It's about one man trying to balance his own dreams with the weight of family responsibility. And honestly, that's as normal as it gets. The episode starts with Homer finally doing something we've all wished we could do.
I can finally quit this lousy job.
But Homer, how are you gonna make a living?
Don't worry about Homer J. I've got a plan.
He storms out of the nuclear power plant, throws his hard hat in the air, and walks straight into his dream career, working at the bowling alley. For once, Homer isn't the lazy dad who can't get it together. He's motivated, passionate, and genuinely happy. This is the kind of joy we rarely see from him, and it feels like something many of us can relate to, that fleeting high of finally escaping a dead-end job. But then comes the gut punch.
Congratulations, Mrs. Simpson. You're pregnant.
And just like that, the fantasy life Homer built for himself collapses. Suddenly, the money from the bowling alley won't cut it. The security of the power plant, the job he thought he'd left behind forever, becomes the only option. It's not played for laughs, either. It's heavy. It's a reminder that sometimes, no matter how much you want freedom, responsibility pulls you back in. What makes this episode hit harder than almost any other normal story is the ending. We see Homer back at the plant, looking miserable at his workstation, but surrounding him are pictures of Maggie taped across the wall, covering up every sign of despair. And right in the middle, a handwritten note that says, "Do it for her." That's not a gag. That's not parody. That's as real as parenting gets. Sacrificing comfort, passion, even identity for the sake of your children. It's a message that cuts through the comedy and lands like a punch in the chest. And that's why this episode feels so grounded. It's about the choices parents make every day. Choices no one claps for. Choices no one remembers. But choices that shape families forever. But as raw and emotional as In Maggie Makes 3 is, it's also almost too clean. The story is neatly wrapped up in sentimentality. It's inspirational, almost like a Hallmark version of parenthood, which is great television. But real life isn't always that tidy. For a sharper, more awkward kind of realism, we've got to look at Lisa Simpson and the substitute teacher who changed her life. If And Maggie Makes 3 shows us the sacrifices parents make, Lisa's substitute shows us the painful, confusing lessons kids face while growing up. And honestly, it might be one of the most down-to-earth stories The Simpsons ever told. The premise is simple. Lisa gets a new substitute teacher, Mr. Bergstrom, who treats her with a respect and seriousness she rarely gets at home or even at school. While Homer dismisses her passions and her classmates mock her intelligence, Bergstrom encourages her curiosity and makes her feel seen. For Lisa, it's like discovering that one adult who finally understands you, the one who reminds you that being different isn't a curse, it's a gift. And here's what makes it so real. This isn't some exaggerated cartoon arc. This is childhood. Almost everyone remembers that one teacher, coach, or mentor who made you feel like your weirdness had value. For Lisa, Bergstrom isn't just a substitute teacher. He's proof that someone out there gets her. And that's not just a school story. That's an identity story. But then comes the part that hurts. Bergstrom isn't staying. He was always just passing through. And when his assignment ends, Lisa is left devastated. She chases him to the train station, desperate for him to stay, desperate for this feeling of validation not to disappear. And in what might be one of the most grounded moments in Simpsons history, Bergstrom doesn't give her a miracle answer. He simply hands her a note.
This is all you need to know.
Thank you, Mr. Bergstrom.
It says, "You are Lisa Simpson." That's it. No magic fix, no cartoon twist, no endless promise. Just a small human reminder that her worth isn't tied to someone else's presence. She has to believe in herself.
So, I guess this is it. If you don't mind, I'll just run alongside the train as it speeds you from my life.
Meanwhile, the B-plot grounds things even further. Bart is running for class president. No explosions, no grand schemes, just a school election. And in true Simpsons fashion, he actually wins by a landslide, but forgets to vote for himself, so he loses. It's petty, it's frustrating, and it's completely believable. Put these threads together, and you get an episode that feels almost like a short indie film tucked inside a cartoon. It's about mentorship, disappointment, disappointment and the kind of lessons that stick with you long after the credits roll. And unlike most episodes, there's no reset button here. Lisa doesn't magically get a new Bergstrom next week. Life just moves on, the way it always does. It's a beautifully quiet kind of normal, where the biggest stakes aren't the town's survival, but a little girl's heart, and it works because The Simpsons didn't overcomplicate it. It trusted the reality of growing up to be powerful enough. But if this was Lisa's most normal story, the show didn't stop there. Just a few seasons later, Lisa tries to reinvent herself in another very real, very awkward situation, making new friends on summer vacation. If Lisa's substitute showed us the heartbreak of losing someone who believed in you, Summer of 4'2" shows us the other side of growing up, the desperate urge to reinvent yourself just to fit in. And honestly, this might be one of the most painfully relatable episodes The Simpsons ever put on screen. The story starts with the Simpson family heading out on a summer vacation to the beach. For most shows, that would mean hijinks, big set pieces, or some wild seaside disaster. But here, the focus zooms in on something small, awkward, and completely real. Lisa trying to make new friends. She realizes that her usual bookworm, overachiever, saxophone prodigy persona doesn't exactly scream cool kid, especially when you're trying to break into a new group. So she ditches the pearls, the dresses, the carefully cultivated image, and starts fresh. New clothes, a new attitude, and for the first time, Lisa is actually popular. She fits in.
You guys skate?
Try to. The cops always confiscate our boards.
I think I know a place you can skate that's virtually deserted.
She's not the brainy kid this time, she's just Lisa, and that's where the drama kicks in. Bart, who's used to being the attention magnet, suddenly finds himself shoved into the background. His own sister is stealing the spotlight, and his jealousy doesn't take long to surface. Instead of celebrating Lisa's success, he tries to sabotage her new friendships, exposing her real self to the other kids.
Check this out, Miss Perfect Attendance, Grammar Rodeo Head Buckaroo.
This is where the episode feels especially grounded, because sibling rivalry isn't about world-ending consequences. It's about petty jealousy, one-upmanship, and the fear of being replaced. Bart's behavior might be bratty, but it's real. Anyone with siblings has felt that sting of competition, where love and rivalry blur together in messy ways. And for Lisa, the lesson hits just as hard. You can reinvent yourself all you want, but eventually, the real you comes out. In the end, Lisa's friends accept her anyway.
Does this mean you still want to be friends? Even though I tried to cover up my nerdish leanings?
We don't care who you were.
Proving she didn't need to bury her identity in the first place. It's an awkward, painful, but ultimately affirming arc. The kind of story kids and adults alike can see themselves in. There are no aliens, no Homer-driven disasters, no citywide riots, just a girl trying to fit in, a brother trying not to be overshadowed, and a summer trip that turns into a quiet but powerful coming-of-age moment.
I showed it to your friends again before we left. Look inside.
That's why Summer of 4'2" lands so well. It's not flashy, it's not zany, it's just relatable. It captures that universal feeling of wanting to belong, of fearing rejection, and of realizing that the people worth keeping around are the ones who accept you anyway. But family drama doesn't stop with siblings. Just one season later, The Simpsons tackled something even more grounded, something many kids in the 90s could painfully relate to: the messy reality of divorce. If Summer of 4'2" showed us how fragile childhood friendships can be, A Millhouse Divided takes us into a much heavier and painfully real territory: divorce. And in true Simpsons fashion, it doesn't hit you with flashy gimmicks or cartoon chaos. It hits you with an awkward dinner party that spirals completely out of control. The episode starts simply enough. The Simpsons invite Millhouse's parents, Kirk and Luann Van Houten, over for dinner. At first, it feels like just another quirky side family moment, but within minutes, the tension is unbearable.
If you want to talk nervous, you should have seen Kirk deal with the high school boys who egged our Bonneville.
The Van Houtens argue, they bicker, and before dessert even hits the table, their marriage publicly implodes in front of everyone.
Divorce? Sure, divorce. Hey, you got it, Toots.
It's messy, raw, and uncomfortable, and that's exactly why it feels so real. Unlike the usual Springfield antics, this isn't about Homer causing a citywide blackout or Bart launching a prank gone nuclear. This is just two parents reaching the breaking point and a kid stuck in the middle. The fallout is devastating for Millhouse, who suddenly has to cope with his family being ripped apart. And instead of the show smoothing things over with cartoon logic, it leans into the awkward reality of what divorce does to a household. What's even more interesting is how the story pivots to Homer. Watching the Van Houten's marriage collapse sends him into a spiral of insecurity. He starts wondering, if Kirk and Luann can fall apart so easily, what does that say about me and Marge? And in true Homer fashion, he handles it in the most backwards way possible, by deciding to fix things with a surprise divorce so he can re-propose to Marge and remarry her in front of everyone.
I know you love me. We don't need to get married again.
Yes, we do. I got us a divorce this afternoon.
It's funny, yes, but it's also heartbreakingly believable, because beneath the laughs, this is about the fear so many couples face. What if we're not strong enough? What if what we've built can vanish overnight? Homer's desperation is silly on the surface, but his panic about losing Marge is rooted in something very real. Meanwhile, Kirk and Luann's divorce isn't magically resolved. Luann thrives in her new independence, while Kirk flounders spectacularly. He loses his job, his self-confidence, and even ends up recording the hilariously sad "Can I Borrow a Feeling" demo tape.
Can I borrow a feeling?
Go ahead, Homer, laugh at me.
I already did.
It's both tragic and comedic, like watching someone you know hit rock bottom after a breakup. And that's what makes A Milhouse Divided one of the most normal episodes of The Simpsons. It's not a satire of government. It's not a wild parody. It's just a reflection of what happens when a family falls apart. No one comes out of it looking glamorous. No one gets a perfect happy ending. It's awkward. It's messy, and it's painfully real. For Milhouse, it's the loss of stability. For Homer, it's a wake-up call about how fragile love can be. And for viewers, it's a reminder that even in a cartoon about yellow people, sometimes the most shocking stories are the ones that mirror real life. But not every normal episode is heavy or tragic. Sometimes the show gets painfully real by asking a simple question: what happens if someone from the real world shows up in Springfield? And that's exactly what makes our next contender so unforgettable. Most of the time, Springfield works because everyone accepts the nonsense around them. Homer can fall down a gorge twice, crash his car into the driveway every single day, or sleep through a meltdown at the nuclear plant, and nobody really questions it. But what if somebody did? What if a completely normal, hardworking person walked into the Simpsons world and called it out for what it is? That's exactly what happens in Homer's Enemy. The episode introduces Frank Grimes, or Grimy, as Homer cheerfully nicknames him. Frank is everything Homer isn't: diligent, responsible, a man who's had to fight for every scrap of stability in his life. He grew up in hardship, worked his way through school, and takes his job at the power plant with deadly seriousness. To him, safety protocols matter, attention to detail matters, showing up matters. And then he meets Homer. From the moment they cross paths, Frank can't believe what he's seeing. Here's a man who sleeps at his workstation, has no idea how half the plant works, and somehow lives in a nice house with a loving family, despite never putting in real effort.
God, I've had to work hard every day of my life, and what do I have to show for it? This briefcase and this haircut!
It's infuriating. The more Frank sees of Homer's charmed existence, the more his frustration boils over. And here's where the episode stops being funny cartoon and starts feeling brutally real. Because we all know a Frank Grimes, someone who works themselves to the bone, who follows every rule, who does everything right, only to watch someone less qualified stumble upward into a better life. That frustration, that bitterness, that's not comedy, that's reality. Of course, The Simpsons takes it to the darkest extreme. Frank's outrage grows until he completely unravels, mocking Homer by pretending to be him, careless, sloppy, reckless, only to accidentally kill himself in the process. And the most chilling part, Springfield shrugs it off. Homer snores through the funeral, and life goes on as if nothing happened.
Change the channel, Marge.
That's our Homer!
It's one of the bleakest endings in the entire series, and that's why it stands out as both incredibly real and incredibly uncomfortable. Homer's Enemy isn't normal in a cozy, relatable sense. It's normal in the harsh way life can be unfair. It strips away the protective cartoon bubble and asks, what if someone actually had to live in Homer's world? The answer isn't funny. It's tragic. That's why this episode is both a contender and an outlier. It nails realism better than almost any other episode, but it's too cynical, too dark to feel like a slice of everyday life. It's not average Springfield, it's a nightmare version of it, which brings us to our final pick, the episode that balances realism with relatability better than all the others and earns the crown as the most normal Simpsons episode of all time. Out of all the grounded stories The Simpsons has told, none feel more uncomfortably real than Marge Be Not Proud. It doesn't deal with flashy settings, or new characters, or a satirical big idea. Instead, it's just about a kid making a mistake, and the fragile trust between a parent and a child breaking in an instant. The setup is almost painfully ordinary. Bart wants the hot new video game Bone Storm. Marge says no, and like countless kids before him, Bart decides he's going to get it anyway. But instead of saving money or waiting for Christmas, he shoplifts it. And unlike the cartoon logic we're used to, he actually gets caught. This isn't a gag. This isn't a harmless prank. The mall security guard calls Marge and Homer down, and suddenly the episode shifts into something we almost never see in The Simpsons: quiet shame. Marge doesn't scream. She doesn't turn it into a big public scene. Instead, she just withdraws. She becomes distant, and that silence is worse than any punishment Bart's ever faced. What makes it hit so hard is that it's not really about stealing a game. It's about betrayal. For Bart, it's a cheap thrill, but for Marge, it's a signal that her little boy isn't so little anymore, and maybe he's not turning into the person she hoped he'd be. That gap between them, awkward, heavy, and cold, feels terrifyingly familiar to anyone who's ever let down someone they love. The rest of the episode isn't filled with crazy hijinks or desperate schemes. It's just Bart trying in clumsy ways to earn back his mom's trust, buying her a picture frame, hanging around the house, looking for some sign that things are okay again, and Marge trying to decide if she can open up to him after being hurt. The reconciliation isn't a big cartoon spectacle either. It's small, almost fragile. When Bart surprises Marge with a family photo in the frame, it's not the game he wanted, but something better. Proof that he understands what really matters. For the first time, Bart isn't just the troublemaker. He's a son who knows he crossed a line and wants to make it right. And that's why Marge Be Not Proud deserves the title of the most normal Simpsons episode.
Now, I know you love video games, and I asked the clerk which is the one every boy wants.
You got me. Oh, yeah!
No conspiracies, no life or death stakes, just a mom and a son, separated by a mistake, and slowly learning how to find each other again. It's awkward, it's quiet, and it's exactly what growing up feels like. This is Springfield at its most human, and the fact that it works without any of the usual cartoon chaos shows how versatile this show really is. And that's it. The 6 most normal episodes in Simpsons history. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because there are plenty more like it on my channel.